Good morning. Today we will be starting or covering the last point or last topic related to the points or switches, that is types of switches. And as usual, a quick recap of what we covered in the last lecture. So in the last lecture, we completed the components related to the points and switches. So in all, we had these 6 components. And apart from these 6 components, we also saw that what is a heel of a point and what is a toe of a point. So with the components, we saw what are the stock rails. Those are the main rails which are continuing throughout the track or which are coming from the previous track section. Then you have a tongue rail, which is a tapered rail at the start, and then it takes the width of the stock rail. So it is fitted inside the stock rail, and it is a movable part. So it can either one of the rail can touch to either of the stock rail, either left or right. Then we saw what is a heel block. So basically we saw what is a heel portion. So it is the portion about which your tongue rail moves as a pivoted section, and distance block is nothing but it is provided between the check rail and the stock rail. Then we saw stretcher bar. Stretcher bar is the important component which allows the movement of your tongue rail, and both the tongue rails move simultaneously and through same distance or same gap due to this stretcher bar assembly. So in that we saw that there are a lot of variety in the stretcher bars all over the world that are used. Sometimes the plate assembly, and then you have a mechanism which either uses some pulley assembly or a wire assembly to operate the stretcher bar, or there are different mechanism, as in the right side image that we saw, that it's electrically operated stretcher bar, and the recent development that we have is hydraulically operated tubular stretcher bars or rollers over which your tongue rail simply slides. Then we saw the slide stairs or the sliding plates, or these are the surfaces over which actually your tongue rail slides, and below this assembly you have a switch tie plate or a gauge tie plate. Then we saw actually again what is the heel of the section, what it looks like in the section. So as you can see, both the tongue rail and the stock rail have the same cross section, or they are made up of the same section at the heel portion. And at the toe section, toe is nothing but the starting point from where the tongue rail starts, the tapering portion, and the gap between the tongue rail and the stock rail, that is the throw off switch. And we saw different values adopted in Indian Railways for this throw off switch, and the section how it looks at the toe portion. So you have a stock rail which is the flat footed rail, but the tongue rail here is not flat footed, but it's a sort of L section. So this was all about the previous lecture. Now starting with today's lecture, so we'll be seeing now what are the types of switches. Now by now you must have known that switch is nothing but a point, and point is nothing but a switch. It's the same component but with different terminologies. Okay, so we'll be seeing what are the different types of switches and the order in which these types of switches are arranged. So it's sort of a chronological order. So the first switch, this stub switch that we'll be seeing, so that is the most oldest switch that is known to the industry in railways. Okay, so this type of switch, now by now again you must have understood switch or a point is nothing but such a assembly or such an arrangement which allows your wheel of a railway to change its to change the track. So either it is running on a straight track, so your points or switches allows the railway or the wheel of the railway to divert from the straight track to the branch track or the diverging track on the left or the right side. So stub switches or stub switch, it is the oldest form of switch, and in this it is interesting to know that actually there is no tongue rail in it. So till now we have seen that switches or points, you say, so the important component of that switch or a point is a tongue rail or pair of tongue rail, but the tongue rail development, it came very later on as the advancement in railway engineering, but at very primitive stage of railways when they were introduced, and when there was a need for changing tracks of the railway. So at that time, this stub switch was used. Now, if you see the photos also, they are pretty old photos. The one on the top right corner, if you see, now this is the stock rail, and in this we don't have a tongue rail. So what you have is, suppose your railway, it is coming in this direction, okay, the arrow which I have shown, and it has to change the direction from this straight going to the if it has to take a right turn. Now the photo is inverted, so that's why the railway has to take a right turn. It is looking as the left side, but if you go by the direction wise, this is the facing direction. So in that, this is a right turn. So now it has to change its track. So what was done is, this whole stock rail or this whole rail, it was shifted so that it matched this track. And then your railway moved from the straight portion to the right side curve. So this is a close-up view, what actually happens at the toe of the switch or a point in case of a stub switch. Now this second picture of which I have titled narrow gauge stub switch. So as you all know, when the initial railway started, narrow gauge was the most widely used gauge. So in that, this is the arrangement that is still there. Now if you see, it's not in a working condition. You can guess it from its appearance also. So they have just kept it for representation or some purpose, that okay, this was the oldest switch that was there, or maybe this pic was taken before dismantling this switch. So if you see here, it looks like a point and crossing assembly, which is used nowadays, that you have a tongue rail or you have a switch at this portion. This is the starting point or starting location, that is point or a switch. Okay, this I can say it is a switch section, and then this is the crossing, actual crossing. Okay, now it's an old one. The I don't have dates, but it is pretty old. You can say it's more than 50 years or 60 years old, definitely. So this is the crossing. And now in this, if the railway has to change the track, you can see here that there is no tongue rail as such or tapered rail. This is the rail, the one which I am putting a tick mark on. So these rails, they are moved either to match the alignment of this these rails which are laid ahead of it, or to match the alignment of these rails which I am encircling. Okay. So it has to, in this case now the straight track is this one, and if it has to take a diversion or turn to the left, or the railway has to divert to the left side, then simply these rails, these initial rails, I am marking it as 1 and 2, these rails are shifted completely to the left side, in such a way that they match these rails. Okay, and to move that rail 1 and 2, you have this assembly. Okay, so it's just a lever assembly, that if you pull the lever on one side, the rails, they shift to that side. Okay, so that's the case. In this case, if I just move the lever to the left side, these rails 1 and 2, they will move to the left side, and then your railway will be able to take a turn. Now, looking at this picture itself, you must be understanding that why it would have been a tedious job. And as I have written here, that stub switches are not in use now. I have highlighted that because it had a lot of disadvantages. You can see that every time it had to match the, now whenever the first thing was, it was a manual operation, that a person had to stand here every time when the railway had to switch over to another tracks. Secondly, even if the rails or the arrangement was made such that the levels of both the rails, that is the fixed rail and the moving rails, they match, then too, due to wear and tear and due to continuous moving of trains over the tracks, there might be chances of mismatch, that gauge was not maintained properly, or there was a level difference. So there were a lot of issues in this stub switch, as you can see here. So that's why it was discarded once the concept of tongue rail came into picture. Okay, so till then stub switches were used. There were no tongue rails, and the only movement from one track to another that was made possible by actually moving the complete rail section, or the complete rail as such, which was used, and it was broken into different parts. Okay, now if you see here, as I told you, this is not in working condition. That's why you will not see any fish plates or connections, but the arrangement was in the similar way. Then comes the second type of switches, that is split switches. Now in this split switches, there are all the different types that have been seen after the invention of the tongue rail. Okay, so the first type of switch, split switch, again you have different 4 types in split switch as well. And the first type, it is based on fixation at heel. So now you know what is a heel section in a switch or a point. So at that heel section, as I told you, heel is the location where it acts as a pivot, similar to, you can imagine, to your cantilever beam, and your beam can deflect in either position. It can deflect up or down depending on the loading, and the other end, which is fixed, it remains at the same location. It doesn't move, so only the free end is moving. So similar way your heel acts, that at heel location the tongue rail is fixed, and if I just simply draw a triangular, because it's a tapered rail, that's why I'm drawing it a triangular shape. So at this heel portion, this H is nothing but the heel location. So at the heel location, it will be fixed, and the free end of the tongue rail, it will be free to move either to the left or right depending on the requirement. So based on this fixation, how it was fixed at this heel, so again we had these 2 types, loose heel and fixed heel. So we'll see one by one. First we'll be seeing a loose heel. So the top figure that you see, it's just a line diagram. You can't make out a lot of it, a lot of understanding from this line diagram, but I've just shown here so that you might get some idea, but actual idea you will be getting here. Now what was done is, what is done is, loose heel or articulated split switch it is nothing but at the heel section you have a fish plate assembly. Okay, this is the fish plate, and then this fish plate is, why this fish plate is used, that it is connecting the stock rail to this tongue rail. Okay, this is the tongue rail, and it is connecting these, both are tongue rails. So the stock rail and the tongue rail, they are joined together at this heel section with the help of this fish plate and having this fish bolts. Now if you look at this bolt, 4 bolts that I am encircling, so if you observe closely, there is a difference in these bolts. The first 2 bolts, these one, if I number it, that 1, 2, 3 and 4. Okay, so the first 2 bolts, they seem to be having a nut at this end, but here you can see it's a bolt. Okay, the head of the bolt is seen in the bolt number 3 and 4. So what is done in the loose heel or articulated type, so tongue rail is joined to the stock rail by the means of a fish plate, and 2 front bolts, they are kept loose. Now this bolt number 1 and 2, they are kept loose so that your movement can be allowed. This movement of your tongue rail in the left or right direction, it can be allowed using this, due to this loose bolts. Now loose as in they are not fully open, they are partially closed using this bolt, but these bolts are not tightened with some machine or some, they are just simply tightened by hand, but not too tight. They are kept somewhat loose so that when your tongue rail moves, so that movement is allowed. There is a gap, if you watch closely, there is a gap between the washer and the end of the or the face of the tongue rail. So this gap allows the movement of your tongue rails. And the other bolts or the back two bolts 3 and 4, they are fixed or they do not move, or the tongue rail does not move at this location 3 and 4. It only moves, put across that at 3 or 4 location your tongue rail doesn't move, but at location number 1 and 2 or location of bolt number 1 and 2, this tongue rail will move. So that's your loose heel or articulated wheel. Just a minute. So this is the loose heel or articulated heel. And if you see on this right side, extreme right side figure, so this I have just shown the typical cutting or this much section. I have the photo has been shown of only this section that I am highlighting with this square here. Okay. So you can see here, this is the tongue rail, this is the stock rail, and sorry, these are the fish plates, the ones I am taking, putting a tick mark. So these are the fish plates, and then you have a tongue rail and stock rail inside. And if you see the assembly, these two bolts, these are that 1 and 2. Sorry, these are the 1 and 2 bolts which are movable, and this is 3 and 4 which are fixed. So now if you see the fixed bolts 3 and 4, you can see the actual nut and bolt assembly throughout. You can actually see the cylindrical part of the bolt here. But what is there in this nut number 1 and 2 is that, or bolt number 1 and 2 is that you have a hollow section, and in that hollow section you have this nut and bolt inserted. Okay, so the nut is just at the end and the bolt is inserted inside this. So maybe this is your bolt. Okay, so you can see there is a gap inside, so that your movement of that nut due to the movement of tongue rail is possible. So this is the type of switch that is we are discussing, loose heel or articulated type. So it is just provided so that there is a movement. The next type that we have, or continuing with this loose heel itself, if you consider again, there is a picture of this loose heel itself. So this type of switch is used where your tongue rail length, it is less, and less as in, I mean less than 6 meter. If you have a very short tongue rail distance is there, or tongue rail length is there, so in that case we prefer this loose or articulated. Okay, now it's again obvious if you again compare it with the cantilever analogy. So if I have this L1 distance, and if I have another cantilever beam which has L2 span, so this L1 span, it is obviously less than L2 span. So whatever is the deflection and moment, rather than deflection, the moment that is there, that will be much more in this case of L2. Okay, so if moment is more, if that pivot point, if this pivot point that we have at the heel section, so if that is more, the moment is more, so your bolts may fail in that case, and the assembly may break altogether. So that's why we prefer it only for the lesser length of switch. So this is that, and you can see you have a gap in the rails. Okay, so that gap is provided because these two bolts are fixed and these two bolts are loose. So that's why, to facilitate the movement, there is a gap, and this is the heel block that you can see again very clearly in this picture. So this is the loose heel or the articulated wheel, articulated switch. The second type that we have is the fixed heel or spring or flexible. Okay. Now you can guess by the name, one was loose heel, the first one, now other one is fixed heel. Now the only difference between fixed heel and loose heel is that in case of loose heel, all from the 4 bolts, 2 were loose, 2 were kept loose to allow some movement, and the other 2 were fully tight. Now on the contrary to this, In case of your fixed heel, all the 4 bolts, they are kept tight. Okay. So now you might think that if all the 4 bolts are kept tight, then how come the tongue rail will move? So it's not like that in case of fixed heel, the tongue rail will not move. Obviously, it has to move, otherwise there is no use of that tongue rail. So it will be moving in a fixed heel as well. But in that case, the flexibility is brought into picture in the changing the material of your tongue rail. So in that case, your tongue rail material is a bit flexible, or the elasticity is bit more. Okay? Though it is made of steel, then too it is a bit elastic, so that it allows the movement. But at the same time, it is not so much rigid also, so that it will break due to that movement. Okay? So the balance is maintained. Okay? So it can move and come back to its original position, but at the same time, it can also maintain its shape. Okay? So the only difference in that is that these bolts that you see, all the bolts are tight. So if you even see here, you can see in this case, instead of bolt, they have used a plate section. So all of them are tight. There is no loose bolt as such to allow the movement. Okay, so that's the only difference between your loose heel and fixed heel type of split switch. And if you see the suitability, so this fixed heel, it is only used for long tongue rail section. Long tongue rail as in when your tongue rail is having a length of 7 meter to 25 meter. So in that case only, we provide this fixed heel. And if you see another peculiar characteristics, that there is no gap, as we had a gap in case of a fixed loose heel. So in loose heel, we had a gap so that the movable section moves freely and the permanent section or the non-movable section, it stays as it is. But in this case, we don't have any gap over here. We have a continuous rail, just like a continuous welded rail, you can see. So that's the difference between loose heel and fixed heel. So that is the type of split switch based on the fixation at heel. The next type of split switch, it is undercut switch. Now undercut switch, it is nothing but, if I guess from the name itself, undercut, something you see, it is having a term of, it is containing the term cut. So in this case, what is done is, we all know that your stock rail, it is a I section, flat-footed flange rail. Okay. So in case of your undercut switch, the flange portion or the foot portion, it is cut in such a way that I can put a tongue rail or place a tongue rail in this section. So as you can see in this first figure, so this is the stock rail that you have, but instead of having a regular flat-footed rail, it is flat-footed, but the foot on the left side, it is cut over here. Okay? The foot is cut in such a way, or it is cut at such a location that when I keep my tongue rail, the top of the tongue rail, it matches with the stock rail portion. Okay, so this is an old version of undercut switch in which the tongue rails were having less height than your stock rail. Okay, so if you see the modified undercut switch on the right side, so this is the one that we have nowadays. So in this, the tip or the top level of the tongue rail, it is almost equal to the level of your stock rail. Okay, so this is that condition, what you can see. Okay, this if I number it 1 and 2, so this condition is, or this is the undercut switch in the modified one, okay, where you have the top of the tongue rail, it is at level with this level of your stock rail. Okay. And a small gap is maintained. Now hardly you can see any gap, but there is a very little gap of 6 mm in that. Okay. So this is the undercut switch, and if you see this figure, so now here you can see there is a actual visually you can see that there is a level difference between the stock rail and the tongue rail top level. So this is the old undercut switch. So just to clarify, this is the old undercut switch, and this is the modified undercut switch. Okay, so how it's self-explanatory, the same thing I have just written here in the theory, that the portion of flange at the foot of the stock rail, it is cut in such a way that it can accommodate the tongue rail. It's not like the foot of the stock rail, it is cut at any location. It is cut in such a way that if you keep a tongue rail, it will be accommodating exactly, not extra, not less amount is, or less gap or extra gap is in between that tongue rail and stock rail. Otherwise, there will be a movement at the base portion. And again, these kind of switches, they are used at a narrow gauge lines. Now, why, if you just give it a thought that why these types of switches are used at narrow gauges or in narrow gauge lines. So what we are doing is we are actually cutting the stock rail. Now we all know that stock rail, it is the important or the main rail or the over which your wheels are moving, and just in case of changing the track, that one of the wheel will go on the tongue rail. So when you are cutting the stock rail, you are disturbing its symmetry as well. Okay, so as you can see, if I highlight the vertical axis of this stock rail, so I am disturbing the symmetry by cutting the foot only at one end. And first is that I am disturbing symmetry. Second is I am removing some material from the stock rail. So in this process, I am disturbing I am reducing the strength of the stock rail. So it might fail very early, or the wear and tear will be quite rapid in case of this type of switches. So that's why we use it for narrow gauge lines, where in narrow gauge a lot of traffic is not there. Okay? Very few trains pass over that kind of point or a switch. So that's why we use it in narrow gauge lines. The next type in split switch is the overriding switch. Now overriding, again, from the term, if you get, overriding means, you can see in the right side figure that you have a stock rail. Now this stock rail, it is kept as it is. The section is not disturbed. It is the flat footed section that we are using. But the tongue rail, it is overriding, or it is placed above the foot of this stock rail. Okay. So that's why it is called as a overriding, that in this case your tongue rail is overriding your stock rail. Okay. Rest of the assembly or rest of the functioning, it remains the same, that your tongue rail is capable of moving from left to right or right to left or sliding, but that sliding takes place from this location, that the initial location is over the foot of the stock rail, and then it slides to the left side, and then again when the sliding or the tongue rail has to be stuck to the stock rail again, so it is slided back, and again that sliding, it will be over this foot. So to match this level, there is an extra plate that you require, so that there is a total level maintained, so that when the sliding action takes place, the tongue rail doesn't slip over the slips from this foot. So that is the packing piece on the slide share that we provide. Okay. This is the slide share in this case. Okay. As I told you yesterday, so slide share, it is not actually L type, but it is a lot of times it is the flat plate itself. Just they have given the name slide share. So slide share, and over the slide share, you have a packing material so that the thickness is such that it is equal to the thickness of the foot of the rail, so that the sliding is proper. And on the bottom side, you can see this is the actual figure, but again, it is not the complete rail track which is in running condition or in operational condition, but this is a rail track, or this is a point or a switch section which is manufactured in workshop, and then it is going to be installed at the location where it is intended to use. So this is the picture from the workshop stage itself. So here you can see the portion that I have circled. So this is the stock rail that you have. This is the tongue rail, and here clearly you can see the foot of the tongue rail. This is the foot of the stock rail. It is overridden by this tongue rail. The tongue rail is placed over this foot. Okay. Now here you can see a gap, but as I told you, this is not the operational photo. This is the photo in workshop. You can see it is tied together, so it will be transported to the site, and then the level will be maintained, and then this packing piece will be fitted inside so that the sliding action takes place properly. So this is the overriding switch. So coming to the theory, the stock rail, in this case of a switch, it is a heavy section, and the tongue rail is a light section. Now again, if you logically think why tongue rail will be of light section as in the density, if I say in very simple terms, heavy section means the density is more. That is, if you just weigh 1 meter length of this kind of rail section, so it will be having more weight than the light section. Light section, it will be having a lesser density as compared to the heavy section. So now again, it's logical that if you are going to move your tongue rail and use the base as the foot of the stock rail, so if this tongue rail is also heavy, then this foot of the stock rail, it might get, or it will get damaged too early. Okay. Or might be it never gets damaged in some other kind of switch, but it would get damaged in overriding type of switch. So for that purpose, this stock rail, it is having light section or lesser density, so that it is not that much affected, so that the lubrication and all the other things will take care of the proper sliding, and this foot will not be affected. So the tongue rail rides over the flange of the stock rail, and these kind of switches, they are used now for broad gauge and meter gauge as well. So in many of the sections, even in India also, you will be finding overriding switch at many locations. And the last type in the split switch is straight cut switch. Now again, from the name, you can just make a guess that what it could be. On the right side, top right side, if you see this figure, the drawing, so it is a straight cut switch. And if you see, now this is not a flat footed rail. This, if you recall, this is a double headed rail. Okay. That it is symmetrical about the y-axis as well as x-axis. So in this case, what is there? The tongue rail, it is exactly the face of the tongue rail which is in contact, which is going to touch the stock rail. So it is a straight section. Now here they have just written bull-headed. So from the picture, it is double-headed, but it is also used for bull-headed rails. Okay. So you can just make the correction, here is a double-headed rail. And then the rest of the thing works the same as you can see in this picture, the bottom ones on the left as well as the right. If you see the left one, this tongue rail is exactly straight, and if you see the stock rail, so you just see the head of the stock rail, you don't see the bottom foot because it is a double-headed one. So if you see from the top, you will see only the top head. Okay, same is the case on the right side figure. So this is the stock rail, and this is the tongue rail, and if you see, it is exactly straight for a 90-degree section, you can say. So that is the straight cut switch, in which the tongue rail is cut straight in line with the stock rail, and generally it is suitable for bull-headed and double-headed. That I'll just add here. So in bull-headed and double-headed, it will be possible. More than bull-headed, it will be possible in double-headed, because in bull-headed we know that the material or the metal on the top of the rail, it is more as compared to the foot of the rail. So foot of the rail, it might be something this much itself, but at the top the head is more. So in that case, if you go for a straight cut switch, so again there will be a gap between your face of the tongue rail and the foot section. So again, in this case, you might require some packing so that it doesn't tilt. The tongue rail doesn't tilt when it moves from left to right and sticks to this or touches this stock rail. So as we had seen, in case of overriding switch, there is a packing to maintain the thickness of your foot. In same way, in this case of bull-headed rail, you might need a packing so that the straight edge of the tongue rail and the foot of the bull-headed rail, there is no gap, or even if there is a gap, it is filled with the packing material. Okay. So in double head, you don't need that packing because it is symmetrical about your x-axis as well. So this is the double straight cut switch. So that's all with the types of switches. In the next lecture, we'll be starting with components of crossing. Now, if you just understand what we have done is we are discussing the points and crossings, or we have taken this turnout, and from this turnout now we have understood all the terms that are there in this section, that is switch or a point. Okay, so this is a point or a switch, and whatever are the components in this point or switch, we have seen all the components such as stock rail, tongue rail, heel block, distance block, then sliding plate or sliding chair, stretcher bar. So all that we have seen. Now you can just, if you see this picture or try to correlate it. Now this is just a drawing, a line drawing. So stock rail, now you know what it is. From this picture you can't get that much idea, but now you have seen the actual photo, so you know what is a stock rail, you know what is a tongue rail, you know what is the facing direction, you know what is throw of a switch, and there are some components which have not been even shown in this line diagram. So there is heel of your heel block or a distance block. There is a stretcher bar. This is the stretcher bar. Okay. They have shown here the stretcher bar. So this is the stretcher bar DF, so which is at the toe of the switch, and then it is allowing the movement. So all these components now we are very well aware of. So stock rail, tongue rail, heel block, distance block, stretcher bars, different types, the slide chair or sliding plates, gauge type plate, the heel of the switch, the toe of the switch, the throw of the switch. Now obviously the types of switches. Now we have covered all the components in this section. Now in the next lecture, we will be shifting our focus to this crossing part. Okay, so step by step we will be seeing again, likewise, like we have seen for the point and switches, we'll be seeing for the crossing that each and every component, how does it look, what is the function of it. And once we learn everything about this point and crossing combined separately, then we'll be moving on to, or just by looking at a video, that how the train changes track from one track to another. Just by looking at the video, you will be able to clarify your concept. Okay, so that's my idea of covering this topic. So in the next lecture, we'll be starting with this crossing section.